Hello. Today I want to share with you my ideas about a topic that seems to be one of the most important phenomenon that is shaping and challenging domestic as well as international politics, which is the issue of radicalism. The reason why radicalism has become so important lies in the fact that it is considered as one of the main causes of terrorism, and combating terrorism radicalism is considered as a part of any counter-terrorism strategy. Having said that, it is striking that radicalism has usually been confused with terrorism and dealt with somehow by focusing on the security strategy. This security strategy, in my opinion, has showed its limits in many areas in the world, simply because not all radicalists are terrorists. That's why it can be assumed that an effective strategy, an effective way of combating terrorism may be based on a preemptive approach that consists in dealing with radicalists before they become terrorists. To do so, it seems necessary to take into consideration few ideas. First, I suggest a clear distinction between many forms of radicalism. In my opinion, radicalism has so many manifestations that could not be put in the same basket. First of all, we should distinguish between the use of violence. We can distinguish between violent radicalism and non-violent radicalism. Violent radicalism is some situations in which emphasis is put on the active pursuit of or acceptance of the use of violence to attain political and ideological goals. Meanwhile, non-violent radicalism, the emphasis is put on the active pursuit or acceptance of far-reaching changes in society which may or may not constitute a threat to democracy and may or may not involve the threat or the use of violence to attain these goals. The second distinction, which is very important in my opinion, is in terms of the way scholars study and analyze this phenomenon of radicalism. Most scholars use terrorist attacks as a starting point to study radicalization process. This approach, while it presents few advantages, it fell short, in my opinion, from studying and analyzing the real root causes of radicalism, because much attention is placed on the violently successful cases. But it seems, at least from a theoretical perspective, that it is of an equal theoretical importance to examine the radicals who abandoned the radical process before they become violent. I believe that such an approach seems to be interesting in any endeavor seeking to understand the factors that help such process to develop. Having said that, I think that a third distinction should be made between radicals living in Islamic world and radicals living in non-Islamic context. Why I think that this distinction is very important? Because as we are witnessing during last years, that some of the most important terrorist attacks are perpetrated by Muslims who were born and educated in Western countries. They become radicalized for some reasons that are completely different from the reasons of radicalization of people who were born and educated in Muslim countries. I can talk about mainly two reasons. The first one lies with the domestic and economic and social policy that fell short from integrating them in the societies where they were born and they are supposed to be citizens. The case of the attacks in France last month. As a consequence, most of those radicals kept very strong religious and ideological ties with the Islamic world, and they live in a kind of paradoxical situation. Means that they live in a Western society, but they perceive the world based on a non-Western system value, which is completely paradoxical. So they legitimize their convictions and acts by the perceived suffering of their Muslim brothers living in the Islamic world. So radicalization in this context could be justified by a kind of objection against the perceived wrongdoings against others rather than wrongdoings against themselves. And this kind of radicalization that is, and the terrorist attacks that it caused is characterized by some researchers as humiliation by proxy. In my opinion, unless this kind of distinctions, these three distinctions should be taken into consideration, and unless this conceptual clarity is established by researchers, it seems to me that it is very difficult to come out with effective remedial measures to deal with this phenomenon. Thank you.